C. Practical reason. Individuality which takes itself to be real in and for itself. The truth is now the spontaneous interfusion of the universal and individuality. Here, we will advance from a single and specific individual as all reality to an ethical community of individuals as all reality. The final result is that action and activity alone is reality. That is, the action of absolutely independent individuals who reciprocally see themselves in each other. As Hegel anticipates, quote, action is in its own self its truth and reality, and individuality in its setting forth or expression is, in relation to action, the end in and for itself, end quote. Hegel further states, given action and reality are one, that, quote, consciousness has cast away all opposition and every condition affecting its action, which, as the movement of a circle, is perfectly content to operate in and with its own self. Indeed, action alters nothing and opposes nothing. It is just a transition from a state of not being seen to one of being seen, end quote. It is important to note that although it seems as if reason's goal of becoming all reality has now been reached, Hegel reminds us that this is not so. Only in spirit will this happen. Quote, yet its moments still fall apart within its consciousness as a movement which has not yet brought them together into their substantial unity, end quote. A. The spiritual animal kingdom and deceit, or the matter in hand itself. Okay, as usual, we begin with the individuality that is all reality in its immediacy, as a single and specific individuality that is only an abstract universal reality, because it is initially without filling or content. This individuality is merely a relation of itself to itself, because relation to another is no more. Very important. Recall that when B, active reason, began, things as such no longer existed. Only selves, individuals, I's exist. No sheer other opposing the I existing. Only an other of other I's. Recall also that in the previous shape, the opposition of virtue and the way of the world collapsed into a community or plurality of you-I's, of universal individuals, each as all reality. The single individuality here is a unity of being, its original specific nature, and acting, the expressing of its nature. Its original nature are its special capacities, talents, and character, which are universal because everyone has them. Its original nature is its sole end and content. But to know what its capacities are and to know what it is, the individual must act and produce a work, an expression of its individuality. and this is its sole purpose here. The unity of being and acting also involves the circumstances, the end to be realized, the means of realizing the end, and the work done, the end as realized. There are 5 moments that comprise this dialectic. 1. Thus, I, as the individuality, have just produced a work that totally and wholly expresses myself and my original nature. I, as reason, totally see myself and my object in a fuller sense than I did in all previous objects. In finding nothing but unity with myself and the certainty of myself in the actual world, quote, I can experience only joy in myself. 2. But now problems begin. Does this concept of myself really correspond to reality? First, because my work is now out there in the world, others can see it and react to it. They see a work which contains my particular individuality, an expression of my original nature, but not theirs. They want to see their unity with reality in the work. So they set about to replace my work with their actions. Their interest in my work is different from my interest in it. Another problem is that I no longer recognize the work as my work. For the work is now, quote, something perishable and obliterated by the counteraction of other forces and interests, end quote, which shows the reality of my individuality as vanishing rather than as achieved. Being and acting are now opposed to each other, as acting now leads to non-being. My work now succumbs to the jealousies of the so-called spiritual animal kingdom. But nevertheless, my joy is not diminished, because I am certain that I always succeed in expressing myself through my actions. 3. However, I now find that I must change my view of what I'm doing. I am no longer creating specific works that reflect my particularity and original nature, because my works are perishable and sometimes unrealizable. I am now creating universal works and fulfilling a universal aim, in that whatever I do, it is my aim or end, regardless of the content. Hence, my true work is the unity of being and acting. And it is this true work, this unity, that is die Sache selbst, the matter in hand, the big thing, or what really matters, counts, or is important. It alone is what endures despite the contingent results of an action, the circumstances, means, and reality. My true work is thus to actualize this universal, or what really matters. This universal, moreover, is just a form and has no special content, a form that can be predicated of any activity. For this reason, I can always find joy in my activity, even if it results in no works. As Hegel remarks, quote, whichever way things turn out, consciousness has accomplished and attained the matter itself, what really matters, end quote. 4. But an ambiguity lurks here, and consciousness is not as honest as it claims to be. The universal, now my aim in all that I do, can be regarded either as one, what really matters in itself, or for its own sake, no matter who does it, or as 2, what really matters as what requires just my activity to make it a reality. So I get the credit and glory for doing it, the work reflecting just my individuality and no one else's. What happens, in brief, is that when I, quote, open up a subject matter, I soon learn that others hurry along like flies to freshly poured out milk and want to busy themselves with it, end quote. But when they learn that I am not pleased with their interference and help, that the work is not something that must be done for its own sake alone, but is something I wish to regard as my work, they feel deceived and cheated. But the truth is that they themselves secretly want the same thing, to see themselves in the work. 5. The result is that both aspects, the universal and individual, are essential. What really matters, matters to the individual himself and matters to everyone. Hegel calls this result, quote, the pure or universal matter in hand, as well as the category. The I that is being, being that is the I. The category is also the entire content, namely end, action, reality, being for self and being for another. It is in fact the spiritual essence which is the essence of all beings. All moments, says Hegel, are now dissolved in the universal matter in hand. Thus, the matter in hand, or what really matters, is now no longer an abstract universality, but an ethical substance permeated by individuality. So, what now matters is the universal that requires the action of each and every one. Indeed, quote, this particular consciousness knows the ethical substance, what really matters, to be its own individual reality and the reality of all, end quote. This result now takes us into the law-giving and law-testing reason which will affect the transition to spirit.